Kia ora no, I'm Rachel. Welcome back to my channel where I'm talking about well-being and activism. Today I'm talking about what you can do in the middle of the night when you can't sleep. This is part of an ongoing series I'm doing about sleep. It's something I've struggled with for a long time, and so I'm just sort of pulling together my reflections and experiences, the things I've learned, in the hope that it might point you in some directions or be useful to you, and also as actually a reminder to myself. But my hope is that each time I come back to this, it's just a chance for any of you who are struggling with this as well, and me to both just check in and be like, how is my sleep at the moment? What do I need to attend to? You know, this is not a list of shoulds or a must kind of tick all these boxes and you'll sleep well, and if you're not doing it, you're not doing well enough kind of thing. It's very much just what's worked for me and what might be even just a jumping off point for you kind of thing. I know that everybody's bodies and lives and minds and hearts are all so different, so take what's useful and leave the rest. But yeah, getting right into it. So it's the middle of the night and you can't fucking sleep. And I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things that I've learned from different places, and then I'm going to end with something that I just sort of discovered myself that actually when I remember to do it works for me every time. So yeah, I'll be interested to hear if it works for you as well. So I'll do a whole video sometime about helpful environments for sleep, but just very quickly, the first thing I think it's good to think about when you can't sleep at night is, are there some things you can change in your environment quickly to make sleep easier? I can ignore that thing. So if there's something you can get up and quickly turn a light off, ask somebody to turn something down, put some earplugs in, put an extra blanket on, kick something off to be cooler, whatever. Start there. The next quick thing I wanted to say is relax your expectations. If you're sitting there getting really angry at yourself for not being asleep, which is something that I do a lot, try to relax into the fact that maybe tonight is not going to be the best night's sleep. And I used to do this thing when I was a teenager where I would be calculating the hours. I'd have a clock in my room next to my bed and I'd look at it and I'd be like, oh God, that's, I've been awake for 2 hours now. That means I'll only have, what will that be? That means I'll only have 5 hours sleep tonight kind of thing. And then a little bit later I'll look at the clock and be like, oh my God, that means I'll only have 4 hours sleep kind of thing. Helpful. I learned something along the way that stopped me doing that, which said that we actually get more sleep than we realize that we do. And if you're counting like that, you might look at the clock and then look at the clock half an hour later and not realize that you've dozed in between. So just knowing that I actually was getting some more sleep than I thought I was helped me to let go of that. And something I learned a lot later, more recently as a new parent, don't count your wake-ups. There's this real thing with new mums where everybody asks you all the time, how many times they wake up, how many times they feed, like that. And so you get into this habit of like looking at the clock and counting all those things and stuff, and this piece of advice was like, there's no medal, there's no prize for most wake-ups in the night or whatever so there's no need to record that, there's no need to pay attention to it. And what it does of noticing that, looking at the clock and counting, is it turns on your mathematical calculating kind of brain. And what you want to try to do in the middle of the night is stay in your sleepy, dreamlike brain as much as possible. So moving on from those two just quick pieces of advice, I wanted to talk a little bit about stress. Quite well known that our quality of sleep is most strongly impacted by how much stress we have in our day. So I'll just first of all refer you back to the video that I made about completing stress cycles. I'll link that below. But just briefly saying that from that book Burnout, that we need to think about stress in two parts. There's dealing with the stressor, so fixing the problem that's causing the stress, and also dealing with the stress, the actual physiological response in our body that the stress is causing. Those things need to be separated out and both dealt with. So in terms of I think what ends up happening, and what ends up happening for me certainly, and for a lot of people I think, is that we haven't dealt with the stress in our body, the physiological response to the stress, and so we lie in bed at night obsessively kind of whirring away, trying to fix the problem, when the biggest thing that first needs to happen is just the physiological stress relief. You know, people often say don't do sort of intense workouts right before bed because it'll affect your sleep. But I think if you've had something stressful happen right before sleep, like, you know, you've had a fight with your flatmate or your lover or whatever, or you've had a shitty text from somebody, and it's right in your body right then, I think more useful to get out of bed and dance around or jog on the spot, do something physical to get that out of your system. That's what's worked for me more, to just get it out of my system then lie there and stew in stress juice, you know? If it's not something so intense, I think that there's also something that they talk in that burnout book that's a really useful thing that I've applied lots in the middle of the night when I've noticed, oh, I've got stress in me that I haven't worked out. And, you know, instead of getting into a big like down on myself thing like, oh, I need to be doing more exercise, I need to be dealing with my stress more, there's actually something you can do right there in bed in the middle of the night. And that's a little exercise where you tense up all the muscles of your body for a few breaths, and while you're doing that, you use your imagination to see yourself fighting the cause of your stress. You know, it might be somebody that you've actually had a conflict with. You know, it might be your boss or your mother-in-law or whatever, you know, somebody who's pissed you off. Imagine them and imagine having a fight with them. And I don't mean imagining I should have said this and next time I'm going to tell her that. It's not that. It's physical, visceral, beating the crap out of them, okay? And don't worry, it doesn't mean that you actually will hurt them or you are planning on becoming a violent person. This is just about completing what your body needs as an animal to get that stress out of your system, right? And you'll be surprised at how quickly that you will stop. Like, I find that it stops my brain from, planning those wish that I'd said this 5 years ago kind of whirring in the brain. Another thing I wanted to say just about stressing and worrying and thinking, if you're worrying about stuff in the middle of the night, it can be really useful to say to your brain, I hear that you're worried about this. I understand why you're worried about this, and I'm going to make time tomorrow to worry about this. And set a time, like I'm gonna worry about this in the shower tomorrow or on my commute. And I wanted to say too, like, it's easy to think of that that worrying is just a negative kind of thing, but it makes me think too that often, especially when I've been in workplaces that are very, or collectives or, you know, activism that is very overstimulating and busy, and there's lots of emails coming in, there's lots of meetings and lots of just having to show up and respond, that there can often be a lack of time to just reflect and in a relaxed way think about some of the bigger problems of the, you know, of the organization or the movement or whatever that do need to be thought about, and that churn away in the back of the mind. And so, you know, you go to bed at night and then they're all there. And I think, you know, rather than just thinking about it as worry, thinking about it as, you know, that your mind is finding a time when you're relaxed and able to more creatively and fluidly sort of explore those difficult big issues. And so I think carving out some time in your day or night, like I say, it can even be, you know, when you're in the shower, to get into a very relaxed in a place where you can just let your mind wander and start to sort of solve some of those problems so that you don't have to do it in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep. In terms of when you're just lying there in the bed too, the other thing I wanted to say is just breathing exercises can help as well. Like there's all sorts of different ones that people suggest, but the basic thing to know is that a longer out breath is more relaxing to the body. It kind of stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So yeah, but I wanted to say that even though that can be useful for me, I find that that in the past I've tried to maintain this focus on the breath, like trying to do a meditation, basically like a Zen meditation, like learning to discipline the mind kind of thing and focus on the breath in the middle of the night. And that doesn't work for me, because if I try to maintain it for too long, if I do a few like that, it's helpful, but if I try to maintain it for too long, it just gets into a frustrated place where my brain keeps returning to overthinking stuff, and then I just get angry that I'm not concentrating on the breath. And I know that that's not good meditation practice, but in the middle of the night, I'm not in my best mind. Trying to discipline yourself in the middle of the night, I think, is not, for me, is not helpful. It just gets me more frustrated. And there's another kind of thing that we can draw on from meditation as well, which is this idea of just noticing what you're thinking about, and just taking another part of my mind to step back and go, you're working right now, or you're thinking about the past right now, or you're planning the future right now, just to name it. Like that's a, you know, sort of a useful tip for meditation that helps to step back from it a little bit and decide, well, is that really what I want to be doing, or do I want to be relaxing and sleeping? Again, though, if I tried to do that in a sustained way, with a concentrating on the breath type of thing, it doesn't go to a good place for me. So so all of those things that I set aside, all of those things are useful. But what I've realized is that in the middle of the night, when I'm in crazy problem solving brain, it's actually really good to just let go and have somebody else talking in my ear, doing the work for me. And so I'll tell you some of the ones that I like. There's this practice of yoga nidra, and that's where yoga nidra means sleep yoga, and the idea of it is actually it's not designed to help people sleep. It's designed to have a sleep-like experience while you're awake as a great form of yoga. But I actually find it awesome for sleep, because it takes you on these little fantasy adventures. It focuses on different parts of the body, you know, draws your attention to different parts of the body. It's really soothing, and I'll link one, if I can find my favorite one, I'll link it below, like just how good it is. Another one that I've mentioned before, but I will just mention again, and I talk about this in my video about protecting our passion and needing to, you know, protect our superpower of giving a fuck by putting down our fuck sometimes, you know, and that's Jessica Mullin's daily meditations. Again, I think this is something that she's designed to sort of like the little 6-minute meditations that I think she's designed to more like listen to one every morning to sort of help you put your right mind on for the day or whatever. But there have been times when I've been super stressed and I've just listened to like, I don't know, 10 of those in a row or something to just like really calm down my brain. But in the middle of the night, that I kind of need to be told, you know, things like, you know, you're doing everything right. You're in the right place at the right time. You know, you can let everything go and everything will be fine, basically. I also like the Honest Guys. I just like the voice, and they have so many different options. They have a lot of sleep meditations. They also, and I'll link below if you don't know them already. They have a lot of sleep meditations, but also a lot of like healing meditations and just all kinds of different sort of meditations and adventure-y kind of visualization-y meditations. You know, you can go to Hobbiton or whatever, like there's just so much there. And yeah, so I've found their stuff useful sometimes. I also really like Dan Jones. He does sleep hypnosis bedtime stories, and I think that, you know, like he's a trained hypnotist, and so he knows what he's doing in terms of using voice and stuff to lull you to sleep. But I think that there's also just something really nice about being told bedtime stories in the night. Like it takes me back to that kind of child mind where I can just stop being a grown-up trying to fix everything. And having said that too, I also really like ASMR stuff. There's this whole area of ASMR that's about whispering things. And there's quite a few that, you know, do whispered bedtime story, like whispered stories. And I think whether you, you know, get anything tingly out of ASMR or not, like there's something nice about somebody whispering you bedtime stories as well, that same sort of child mind thing. And there's one that I'll link below that I used to listen to heaps, that is this yeah, like a whispered telling of The Little Prince, which yeah, again, just these things that are just kind of whimsical. Like I say, those are just the ones that I like, but if this isn't something that you've explored before, I just encourage you to just search around, find find the stories that you like or the meditations that you like and the voices that you like. That makes a big difference, I think, how the voice actually sounds to your ear. I think this brings me to my final point. I discovered a little while ago that actually the most quick and useful way that I can put myself to sleep in the middle of the night when my brain is really, really overthinking is just to try to invite a dreamlike way of thinking. Try to sort of step into dreaming, which is the opposite of any of that kind of like focus on your breath or focus on, you know, not thinking kind of. It's the opposite of that pushing, thinking, should have. It's a freeing, dreaming, joyful, fun, state of mind that. And it's not about like, you know, you need to sleep so that you can work tomorrow. It's just about, while I'm lying in here in bed and my mind needs something to focus on, why not focus on something fun, you know? And I feel like you don't get that message enough. And it's been a bit of a revelation to me to start just focusing on something that feels really fun in the moment. And so what I mean by this, and this is what I find is the most important, is to focus on something very, very physical and visceral and visual. So I'm not talking about writing your unwritten fantasy epic in the middle of the night. Like I know a lot of friends do that. I'm not talking about dialogue or description. I'm talking about, for me, it's often simple things like I'm running along the beach with bare feet, and then this is so nerdy, but then I jump on the back of a dragon and fly over the sea, you know, and like seeing the sea and feeling the power of the dragon and the wings and the movement and the air. And so it's embodied, you know, and what I find is really useful is if I also can tap in a little bit to if there's something I'm feeling I'm missing. Because often in the middle of the night I'll be, it might be that I'm trying to solve worky type of problems, or it might just be that if I'm feeling dis-ease with my life and so I'm lying there being like, oh, something's wrong, and then how do I fix it? What should I be doing in my waking life to fix this? And I found that if I can be like, you know, I want to have more fun, or I wish I got to go out more at night or whatever, you know, using my imaginative mind to just be at a awesome outdoor dance party, you know, like, you know, dancing under the moonlight, or, and it could be any, like whatever you're into, you know, you might not be into the same things as me. You might want to just sit in a peaceful rose garden. You might want to drive a car really fast. You might want to just whatever's your jam, you know, as long as it's kind of, like I say, physical and fun and visceral. And I find that it's once I remind myself to do it and draw my attention to it, it's actually really easy to focus on that in the middle of the night rather than, you know, whatever my churny thoughts are. And once I do that, I naturally relax and I naturally fall asleep really quickly. Running, jumping, swimming is something that I do a lot in my dreams, you know, and anything to do with the sea is great too, because the sea represents the subconscious. So there's something about just diving into big bodies of water that I think put us into a good dream space, you know. So that's probably more than enough ranting from me about what I find useful in the middle of the night. I'd love to hear what you think is useful in the middle of the night, and if any of these, you know, let me know if you've got other ideas. Put them in the comments below so other people can use it as a resource. And also let me know if there's anything in here that was new to you or useful to you, or that you feel might work, or you try out and does work. I'd love to hear, you know. So take care, sleep well. No hold mai. Hey, so I forgot to mention, if you are doing that battling in the night thing, stressing in the night, and it's about something that's more like a big system rather than a particular person that you're having a fight with, or stressed about. Like, you know, choose a public figure or a movie character or something, and go, you know, and let them represent capitalism or patriarchy or racism or all of those things intersecting together or whatever, and beat the crap out of them, you know.